Good, works. That was possibly the easiest thing we will do all day.
Okay. Can we begin?
Hi.
Yes,
Hi.
we can.
Okay. First of all, shalom, everyone. I'm Alex Sasha, or Jewish name Israel. It's the third annual ceremony for remembrance on the week of the victims of Jewish pogroms in beginning of the Nazi occupation in 1941, the end of June, beginning of July. First of all, I have sent for all the staff, all the people that helped me to broadcast this ceremony. Agnieszka, David, Cheryl, Yoika, Alex, and Vitali, and others people, and Nurit Ashkenazi. The second one I have sent because of current situation for the Ukrainian army that let us in Lvov to stay in some silence. And the third I have sent for all the participants of the ceremony that we are going to provide right now. And I have a big honor and a big pleasure to let Loika and Agnieszka to be the providers, the conductors of the ceremony. Okay? Okay, please, Agnieszka.
Yes, welcome everyone. I think, Alexander, that you could point your camera at your location so we see where you are. You are heading to the monument, right?
Yes, like Alex and Vitali, we are three here.
Let me share the program of today's ceremony.
Okay. Okay.
That's sorry, that's not this document. Let me just preview. No, why it's okay. Let me do the full screen. So this is the program of our today's ceremony. Alexander, will you open still, or this was the opening, or you will show the monument, right? So the first part of the ceremony is the opening, and Alexander, could you show us your guests and the monument? Can you hear us?
I don't think he can hear us now, maybe.
Yes, so if Alexander at that moment has some technical challenges, Alexander with other friends is in Lviv at the Ghetto Victims Memorial. We'd like to go to the second point of our ceremony.
Yes. Let's begin it.
Yes,
the
yes.
ceremony.
So Avi Kaplan, are you here?
Avi Kaplan? Okay. Avi Kaplan? Okay. Maybe Avi Kaplan will connect us later, I don't know. But I asked, because we don't want to provide, maybe someone can read the Iskor and the El Maleh Rachamim. Reb Melech, are you ready to make it? Or Rebbe Bolt? Hello?
In the
I
meantime,
could read it if you give me 2 minutes to prepare.
yes. So maybe Yoika. Would it be
Okay.
good for you to sing now?
I can, if you want. Yes.
And- Yes, because
Yes. I will. Just to say that it may be important to survey who gets in the session, because apparently there is no filter. You know, if somebody comes, and we should just take a look at who is there.
Mhm.
Okay. So so hello everybody. Welcome
Hello.
welcome to this ceremony. It's a real honor to be able to participate with you know, people coming from different places in the world. Hello, especially to the 3 persons who are in Lvov right now, in the places where the
Вы
terrible
не слышите, что
pogroms
происходит?
Не
happened.
слышу, но я был 2 года назад, я понимаю, что...
So
Okay,
I
okay.
suggest that the host cut the
Я щас
sound
приеду
of the
на
persons
границу,
who are
я
not
поеду там,
speaking.
где у меня
So-
основной офис,
Okay.
компьютер.
Понятно.
Okay. Okay.
Подожди.
Okay.
So yeah, so I searched in my repertoire for a song that would be in relationship with our ceremony, and I would like to sing one song which it was not written in Lvov, but in the Vilna ghetto in 1942, so 1 year after the Lvov pogroms that we are remembering today. But the text of the song reminds me of the pogrom in Galicia. So it's a song by Rikle Glaser, who was a child, and he is explaining how the people from the Vilna ghetto were forced to go to the forest outside Lvov called Ponar.
Outside Vilna, it's Ponar.
Outside
Outside
Joita, I will mute
Sorry.
everyone and then you unmute yourself, okay?
Please, yes.
Окей.
Я ще планував, я ще запрошував сюди директора Львівського єврейського музею Олю Лідовську, але вона в дорозі, я так розумію. Я вас хочу познайомити з нею, якщо ви не проти.
Так, я вже підказав, я...
Okay, so it's better now. So as I was saying, this song relates how it was a beautiful summer day, like today in Strasbourg. It's a beautiful summer day, and it was also in this day in 1942 when people were brought from the ghetto in Vilna to the forest outside Vilna, to the forest of Ponar, to be shot. And the person who tells this text, her name was Rikle Glaser, she first describes the beauty of the day and how it didn't relate to the beauty of the song of this day, to have everybody murdered in Ponar, shot in Ponar, and at the end she says that despite this, despite everything, the day is still beautiful, and that she hopes that there will be a sunshine again.
Я звук отключился.
Es ist gewesen, du bist so so mich schön und doch gehabt in sich so viel Heim. Es haben Feigelach gesungen, Brenner sich herumgesprungen, in Ghetto hat man uns geheißen gehen. Och, stellt sich vor, dass es uns gibt. Verstanden hat, sie ist alles verloren. Nicht geholfen unser Bett, soll mit uns retten, verlassen haben wir doch unsere Heim. Gewesen seien wir zu viel, befallen hat der Herr, zu bringen jeden von auf und schießen auf Bonau. Und seinen Geburtsstäbe überfuhr der Fahr die Gräber, der Säune hat der Greich der größten Ziel. Auf Bonau sind die Wegen, Sachen Hitler durchgenäht von Regen. Da seinen Sachen von Carbonis, von die heiligen Schabes. Die Erd hat sie auf ewig zugedreht. Schmeckt doch voll Alzerung und mit seinen Verwalten und bleiben alle stumm. Abgeschnitten von der Welt, mit heuchem Meuer verstellt, ein Strahl von Hoffnung, der weckt sich kommt.
Thank you, Joika. Alexander is the person saying Kaddish ready?
We could say Kaddish only if we have 10 men to answer Amen. Do we have
Well,
10 Jews in our company to answer Amen?
Our program, it says Izor, or how it's ends Kaddish.
I
Yes,
understand,
I
but
think we
do
have
in
millions.
our gathering 10 Jews observing Shabbat who could answer Amen? If
I
we
think
don't
so.
have, we cannot say, but we could say Isker.
No, Melach, we have 10 men on this call.
Isgadal ve'iskadash shmei rabo.
Amen.
Volmo divroch
Amen.
Yerusei v'yamlich Kusei v'yatzvach purkanei v'karei meshichei. B'chayichon u'v'mechon u'v'chayet kol beis Yisrael ba'agol u'v'zman koriv v'yimru Amen.
Amen.
Shmei Rabba u'mborach lo mamai yisborach v'shtabach v'spor v'srom v'snasei v'salev v'salosh met kutshu brichu. Lelo mit kol b'choso v'shoroso Dushbechassom nechemaso da'amiram balmo v'yimru Amen.
Amen.
Reish Shlomo Rabba mishmayo v'chayim toivim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen.
Amen.
Oisa shalom b'mromov hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen.
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 Iskar Elohim nishmas v'nishmas kol kroivai ukrovosai hein mitzar ovi v'hein mitzat imi hein sherum sohein shenergu hein shenishchatu v'shenisrefu v'shenitbeu v'shen Keu al kiddush Hashem ba'avur shetein tzedoko ba'ad askoros nishmaiseihem u'v'schar zeh tigyeno nafshoiseihem tzruros b'tzrur chachayim im nishmaiseihem shel Avraham Yitzchok v'Yakov Soro Rivko Rochel v'Leyo v'Yim she'ar tzadikim v'tzidkoniyos shebgan Eden v'noi marumein. This was Kaddish for Kedoshim who was perished in Shoah.
Thank you, Meira. So now I think we should start with the memorial before you, Alexander, start with video streaming from the Janowska side, or are you in the ghetto?
We're both to the ghetto side.
But it's a little bit rainy here, but the picture will be so flashy.
So let us start the Remembrance ceremony after the prayers, reading the victims' names remembered by their families. I will share now the online memorial. I will read it together with David today. We remember the victims of extermination in Lviv and vicinity. We remember the Zinger, Big, Shapira, and Lubliner families murdered in the Holocaust. Hannah, Henrik, Anna and Jan, Ignacy and Eliza, murdered in Bełżec in 1942, Jakob, Moshe, Sima, and Shlomo Shapira, and Laura Zinger, remembered by Ari Raman. Szanowny Ari, jeśli nas słuchasz, serdecznie Cię pozdrawiamy. We remember the Kohn, Schwarz, and Friedenthal families murdered in the Holocaust. Shlomo, Hersh, Hanna and Berta, Toncia, Laufer, Lena and Shulek Schwarz, Isidor and Regina Friedenthal, Rena, David and Lucia Friedenthal, Miriam, Rela and Bumek, remembered by Nawa Ruda. Szanowna Pani Rudo, jeśli Pani nas słucha, bardzo Panią pozdrawiamy i dziękujemy, że jest Pani z nami. We remember the Shapira family, Tenen family, Stier, Huven and Feuering families murdered in the Holocaust. Sussman and Freum Eber, Zila, Haim and Cypre Rivke, Freida, Mendeldorf and Adela, Freida Anna and Mojżesz Leib, Lucia Stier, Rosa Emilia and Cecilia, and Stefania Huven, remembered by Stella Feuering Stier Eichel and the Shapira family. Pani Stello, jeśli Pani nas słucha, bardzo dziękujemy, że jest Pani z nami i serdecznie pozdrawiamy. We remember the Leventon family murdered in the Holocaust. Lydia, murdered August 1942, the mother of Vera Borenstein, and Anatol, her father, remembered by Vera Borenstein. Szanowna Pani Wiro, jeśli Pani nas słucha, bardzo dziękujemy i serdecznie pozdrawiamy. We remember the Liebes family murdered in the Holocaust. Maurycy, murdered at the age of 46 in Janowska camp, an engineer and lieutenant, the father. Dr. Ida Liebes, murdered in Janowska camp, a dentist, the mother. Rachel, Bernard, Karolina, and Felek, all murdered in Janowska camp, remembered by Roman Liebes. Panie Romanie, jeśli Pan nas słucha, bardzo dziękujemy i serdecznie pozdrawiamy. We remember the Oberlander family murdered in the Holocaust. Jehuda, Itzak, Sosha, Sholem, Oskar, Taubach, Rachel and Hannah, Bashia, Kessler and son, Hannah Feldman and her 2 children, Hersh, Dina Eisman, and Leah Eisman with her daughter, Shulem Devorah, Ethel, Hannah, and Hannah Kichales, Rosa, Tobias with 2 children, Yoel and Bashia Zucker with 2 children, and Seth, Esther, Lucia, and Moshe Ratzenstein, remembered by Mark Oberlander. Dear Mark, if you are listening to us, thank you for being with us. We remember the Gelerter and Witlin families murdered in the Holocaust. Władysław, murdered July 1941, a judge. Franciszka, murdered, and Leszek Gelerter, a lawyer, and Lutek Roth, a student, also murdered, remembered by Jolanta Moore. Droga Jolu, jeśli nas słuchasz, serdecznie Ci dziękujemy za to, że jesteś z nami i pozdrawiamy.
We remember the members of the Hescheles family murdered in the Holocaust. Henryk Hescheles, editor-in-chief of Chwila, a journalist. Amalia Hescheles, née Blumenthal, committed suicide in the Janowska camp, a teacher. Remembered by Janina Altman, née Hescheles, who died last year, and the Altman family and Tatiana Sukorkina.
We remember the Adler and Brand families murdered in the Holocaust. Yekutiel, Soshana, and Moshe. Ari Menesh, Devora with their children. David and Riva Brand with daughter, Soshe, and other child. Remembered by Hannah Bronfeld.
We remember the members of the Keller, Margulis, Schechter families murdered in the Holocaust. Manya, Michael, Pauline, Yitzhak Keller, Herman Margulis, and Tula Schechter, remembered by Henry Margulis, who lives in London and whose parents, who also have recently passed away, survived 14 months hiding in the sewers of Lviv in 1943 and 1944, along with my late mother.
We remember the Steinberg and Kronhauser families murdered in the Holocaust. Lila, remembered by Ingvar Harel.
We remember the members of the Feuer family murdered in the Holocaust. Moshe, Clara, Regina, Gittel, Max, and Yisrael Feuer, remembered by Yehuda Notman.
We remember the Schwarz family murdered in the Holocaust. Frida and Abraham Schwarz, remembered by Gila Acker.
We remember the members of the Weisberg family murdered in the Holocaust. Israel, Marian, and Marek, all shot in the Janowska camp on March 17, 1943. Dora and Feiga, murdered August 17, 1942. Yitzhak Weisberg shot on Professor's Night, July 4th, 1941, right after the Germans entered the city. Lola, Bruno, Mundek, Weisberg, and Mrs. Gersten. Lisa Rappaport, Jutta Pistiner, Mina Weisberg, and Mrs. Wallach, all murdered in Belzec. Salam Erna Nevalach and Emil, age 1, Klinger, murdered in Belzec, August 10, 1942. Lawrence Klinger, Dr. Joseph Klinger, and Lieber Pistiner, all remembered by Limor Cohen.
And I'd like to add that Dr. Joseph Klinger was the lecturer of my grandmother at the medicine faculty in Lviv, and that he was actually denounced after the Warsaw Uprising that he was Jewish and he was executed. We remember the Katz family murdered in the Holocaust. Regina, Ludwig, David, and Isaac, remembered by Naomi Katz.
We remember the members of the Nussbaum family murdered in the Holocaust. Stella Nussbaum, remembered by Bracha.
We remember the Fuchs, Whitehorn, and Brandwein families murdered in the Holocaust. Sima and Lola Fuchs, murdered in the Lvov ghetto. Wolf, Ethel, and Unique, murdered in a camp. Bernard, Israel, and Aaron Fuchs. Basha, David, Golda, and their children. Cheska and Soshana, age 3, murdered at the train station by a Nazi guard, remembered by Leah Peters.
We remember the members of the Littman, Zimmermann, Wasser, and Stein families murdered in the Holocaust. Koppel Littman, Lazar and Tema Littman, Abraham Littman with family, Henrik Zimmermann, Moshe Mala ne Littman and Baruch Stein, Leon Liber, Clara Chaya ne Littman, Eva and Abraham Wasser, remembered by Chava Eva Granit.
We remember the Katz family murdered in the Holocaust. Aaron, Lovich, Frumeta, Edmund, Lucia Schlager, and Benjamin, remembered by Ofra Ben Ari.
We remember the members of the Polotnik family murdered in the Holocaust. Peretz, Rachel, and Tushka, remembered by Robin Klein.
We remember the Windler, Levin, Levenkron, Lernen, and Schnauzer families murdered in the Holocaust. Hersh and Ita, Yeher and Rivka, Abraham and Regina, Clara and Gienia, Eliezer and Eli Melech, remembered by Stefan Pemper.
We remember the members of the Grossman family murdered in the Holocaust. Shmuel and Chana, named Meller, Mordechai and Shimon, Natan, Tina, near Rosenberg, Tova, 4 years old, and Avi Grossman, Esther, near Friedman, Moshe, Lola, and Miriam, 3 years old, Berta, near Halpern, and Mario, 2 years old, remembered by Iris Grossman Levin.
We remember the Landsberg and Lubinger families murdered in the Holocaust. Yeusiel, murdered on November 2, 1941. Stephanie, murdered 1942 in Bełżec. Maximilian and Anna, murdered 1941, remembered by Dan Ternier.
We remember the members of the Strudler and Berger families murdered in the Holocaust. Frima Fania Strudler, née Berger, murdered June 1941. Chaya Clara Strudler, murdered July 4th, 1942. And Charna and Leib Berger, also murdered July 4th, 1942, remembered by Nurit Sheps-Kaspi.
We remember the Ziegelheim family murdered in the Holocaust. Berish and Reitzel, murdered at the age of 63 and 57 years old. Golda and her baby daughter, she was 35 years old. Moshe and Mendel, murdered at the age of 34 and 33 years old. Shlum and Itka, murdered at the age of 32 and 30 years old. Sima and Davis Raphael, murdered at the age of 25 and 20 years old, remembered by Ayala Raviv.
We remember the members of the Karanter family murdered in the Holocaust. David Karanter, a professor in the Lvov University, murdered in the Yanovska camp. Musha Chaya Karanter, his wife, murdered in the Yanovska camp. Isaac Karanter and Perl Maidblum Karanter. Rivka Blitner, her husband and 3 daughters. Yisrael and Bunik Baruch Karanter, remembered by Yitzchak Shea Eisenstein Karanter.
We remember the Landsberg family murdered in the Holocaust. Henryk Paweł, murdered in Janowska camp, a lawyer, and Fanny Landsberg, murdered in Lvov ghetto, a teacher, remembered by Roy Livne.
We remember the members of the Laufer and Freifeld families murdered in the Holocaust. Shmuel Laufer with 4 sons, their wives, and their children. Koppel, Henya, and brothers and sisters of Koppel Freifeld, remembered by Ruth Noy Freifeld and Shmuel Freifeld.
We remember the Gruber family murdered in the Holocaust. Shimon, murdered during the Petlura days, July 1941. Bluma, Josef, and Marcel, all murdered in Lvov ghetto or in Bełżec, remembered by Freddy Gruber.
We remember the members of the Goldberg family murdered in the Holocaust. Shalom Shulim Goldberg, murdered during the Lvov pogroms of 1941, remembered by Professor Gilad Bar Eli.
We remember the Lam family murdered in the Holocaust. Pnina, murdered during Lvov pogroms of 1941. Pesa and Moshe, murdered respectively at the age of 4 and 1 year old, also during the Lvov pogroms of 1941, remembered by Ariela Lam Maman.
We remember the members of the Gemeiner family murdered in the Holocaust. Shimon Gemeiner, 39 years old, murdered in a hotel during the Lvov pogroms of 1941.
We remember the Shank family murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Gal Shank Ventura.
We remember the members of the Wasser family murdered in the Holocaust. Batsheva Wasser, née Feder, and Avraham Wasser, remembered by Chovav Givat.
We remember the Gutstein family murdered in the Holocaust. Joseph, Hannah, Sarah, Shlomo, and David, all murdered in Janowska camp, remembered by Oded Nafcha.
We remember the members of the Siegel family murdered in the Holocaust. Yosef, Shendel, Henya, Moshe, and Sanek, all murdered in 1942, remembered by Rita Falbel.
We remember the Margel and Yakir families murdered in the Holocaust. Mordechai, Ruchel, Gitel and Tobe, their daughters. Mechel, killed in Smolensk, a soldier. Malka Yakir, with children Joseph and Tilia, remembered by Rachel Margel Steinhaus.
We remember the members of the Lieberman family murdered in the Holocaust. Moshe, a merchant, Eugenia, a teacher, Vorko, a craftsman, remembered by Rudy Martins.
We remember the Shargel family murdered in the Holocaust. Ostwald Shargel, murdered 1943, a businessman. Róża Shargel, murdered 1943, a seamstress. Clara Amster, murdered 1943. Dr. Nathan Shargel and his brother, Dr. David, remembered by Eleonora Frisch. Ostwald Shargel was the best friend of my grandfather, and he was the representative in Lviv for Saroti chocolate factory.
We remember the members of the Landau family murdered in the Holocaust. Yitzchak, Rachel ne Hirschhorn, and Yuzek, remembered by Dorit Morag Landau.
We remember the Anderman family murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Alejandro Aderman.
We remember the members of the Falber family murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Elaine Falber.
We remember the Begleiter family murdered in the Holocaust. Josef, murdered 1942, a businessman. Rebecca, murdered 1942 in Bełżec. Nejota, murdered also 1942 in Bełżec, a student. Ludwig Begleiter, murdered November 1942 in Bełżec, also a student. And Tusia Begleiter, murdered November 1942 in Bełżec, a student, remembered by Maya Bar. The Begleiter family was living next door from my family.
We remember the Rabinowitz family, Ruchel, 48-year-old businesswoman, David, a 27-year-old journalist, Basha, a 25-year-old student, Mordechai, a 21-year-old student, and Regina Zietler, a 23-year-old student, remembered by Ria Ben Shir.
We remember the Messer family murdered in the Holocaust. Róża and Yael, remembered by Daniela Aliagon.
We remember Bronislav Bayrach, a lecturer at the Lvov Polytechnic, killed in June 1941, remembered by Shuki Eker and Natalia Alexiun.
We remember the Żurawski family murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Richard Żurawski.
We remember the members of the Lovenkron family murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by June Foss.
We remember the Stanger and Bringer families murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Rodney Stanger.
We remember the members of the Lev and Rothander families murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Ricky Tadmor.
We remember the Nacht and Bomse families murdered in the Holocaust, Hermann and Ethel, remembered by Alexander Nacht.
We remember the members of the Visberg family murdered in the Holocaust, Regina, Yaakov, Sarah, and Zev, remembered by Sarah Galor.
We remember the Guberman family murdered in the Holocaust, Moses and Manya, murdered October 1942, remembered by May Kessler.
We remember the members of the Tenenbaum family murdered in the Holocaust, Hanoch and Toby Tenenbaum, remembered by Henry Tenenbaum.
We remember the Gleisch family murdered in the Holocaust, Peretz Gleisch, murdered July 1941 in Brygitki prison, a pediatrician and a radio journalist, remembered by Grzegorz Grzębała.
We remember the members of the Lerman, Tyer, Feldson, Silberberg families murdered in the Holocaust. Yached Lerman, murdered in Bełżec, Esther Steinberg, née Lerman, with 3 sons, remembered by Aaron Krochmaldik.
We remember the Wiener, Burt, Tofben, Finkelstein, and Spector families murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Stephanie Burt.
We remember the members of the Goldschlag family murdered in the Holocaust. Baruch, a veteran and a merchant. Sheva, née Koch, a housewife. Yosef and Sima, a merchant and a housewife. Bella and Nelly, 7 years old. Maurizi, Moshe, and Mala, a merchant and a housewife. Artur and Teresa, a carpenter and a seamstress, remembered by Henry Gurion with the family.
We remember the Goldschlag, Bleiberg, and Ennis families murdered in the Holocaust. Erna Esther Ennis, murdered at the age of 45, a housewife. Maurice, age 50 years old, a merchant. Julius, 17 years old, a child. Rachel Bleiberg, murdered at the age of 39, an accountant. Benjamin Bleiberg, a pharmacist, murdered at the age of 49. Leah and David. Janina, murdered at the age of 12 years, their daughter, remembered by the Wiener family.
We remember the members of the Grunzide families murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Amy Lesserman.
We remember the Ropschitz family murdered in the Holocaust. Moses Jacob, a jeweler and goldsmith. Sophia, Amalia, Clara, Eddie, and Rosa Rauch, remembered by Jolanta Bentham.
We remember Hannah Kudesh Nehaber and Janosch Kudesh, both murdered in the Holocaust, remembered by Michal Kudesh Eshed.
We remember the Reichstein family murdered in the Holocaust. Mojżesz and Netje, murdered July 1941, survived by 2 daughters in the photo, remembered by Neta Natalie Goldman.
We remember Helena Iger Gottdenker, murdered July 1941, remembered by Norbert Weinberg.
We remember the Spinner, Labiner, Rothenberg, and Graup families murdered in the Holocaust. Henrik, murdered during Petula days, a merchant and a glazier. Clara, murdered July 1st, 1941, craftswoman, a frame maker. Mieczysław Milek, murdered in Krakow, 1943, a pupil. Julek, murdered in Aktion, March 1942 in Lviv. Dr. Zygmunt Labiner, murdered in the hospital Aktion, August 20, 1942, a lawyer. And Wilma Labiner, murdered in Płaszów, May 15, 1944, remembered by Henry, his sister, and by me, his cousin. We remember all victims of the Holocaust in Lviv and vicinity, and this memorial represents only the selected names, but we do it in the names also of others that maybe nobody survived from the families and cannot remember them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Agnieszka. Thank you, David. And now let us, because Alex Denisenko is waiting to talk to us about some story, and then I will ask Nurita Ashkenazi to tell you what are you ready to talk about. Can you hear me well? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, now let me represent you, Mr. Alex Denisenko, genealogist,
Да,
historian.
мистер этот.
Okay. Alex, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Hello,
Okay.
everyone. So, should I start speaking?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Mrs. Olga Lidovska and myself and Alex Trostenitsin are now by the Holocaust Memorial in Lviv. It's a rainy day. It's one of the war days in Ukraine. However, we have to remember these tragic events and be aware what was happening here 82 years ago. Anyway, we're at the site where the entrance to the ghetto was. So let me show you the new buildings behind me. You probably see this building, and I will walk to the memorial, and you will see the memorial to the ghetto. Anyway, at the end of June 1941, the German army, Wehrmacht, entered the city of Lviv, and the occupation of the city started. The Holocaust started. What the Germans did on the first days and what had happened on the first days was a demolition of the city's largest synagogue, the temple, establishment of ghetto, and the pogrom and the so-called Petlura days that were done by the Ukrainians, Germans, who were instigated by the Nazis, and the idea was the Jews of Lviv to dehumanize them, to show that they are not even humans. And what was done on these first days, that the gangs of anti-Semites were running around the town, approaching the Jewish families, just getting into their apartment, beating them, ridiculing. And David has several photos of these terrible events, and they're actually known worldwide. And this was exactly 82 years ago. And I'm now standing by this monument that you can see behind my back. This is the monument erected here on the first anniversary of the Ukrainian independence. And the idea of this memorial is that all local people, or as many as possible, would know and learn the lesson of the Holocaust, how it had happened. Well, I'm pretty sure people know little, if at all, about what was happening in Lviv during the Nazi occupation, and specifically during the last days of June 1941. Anyway, behind my back is the monument, and the place was chosen because behind it was the Judenrat, the Loketka Street, and the second building of Judenrat. The building is no longer there. After Nazis felt that they're losing the war, they permitted the local Gentile people to dismantle the building of the Judenrat just brick by brick, looking for valuables, money, jewelry, any kind of valuables. And the building was literally dismantled brick by brick. When Nazis were hearing that there was some sort of a pause or silence on the work, they were understanding that they found something, and they were approaching these people and taking away the valuables they had found. So literally nothing remained out of this building. Anyway, now this area was used for construction, and in a few years, very little would remain from the building of the Judenrat. Fortunately, the monument behind me is in good shape, and people of the city and the officials and, well, whoever are coming to commemorate the dates connected with the history of Lvov ghetto. Also, in front of me is the bridge, railroad bridge, which was like a checkpoint. During the daytime, the so-called necessary people with their ribbons bearing Magen David were permitted to go to the town area for different types of work. The other people were moved by the tram car through the other gate, which is not far from here, also for the same kind of ridiculing and unpaid works around the town. Later, after the one-day conference, when the Nazis came up with the final solution, the ghetto was liquidated. All the people who remain here were moved either to the Yanowski camp or exterminated, and Nazis proclaimed the city of Lviv Judenfrei, or having no Jews. So the area was repopulated with the Aryan people, as they call them, with the Gentile people, and that's what this area is like now. So let us all remember the lesson. Well, of course, all people who participate in this conference, they do remember this day, and they remember these terrible events, but our task is to teach the others, to put more education, to promote education of the Holocaust in Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine should, of course, win the war. It's difficult time here, and it's difficult to judge whomever because of the situation, but our task is to promote the knowledge and the remembrance of the Holocaust, and be the people who innocent victims who died in the Shoah be remembered forever. Never forget, never forgive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex.
My pleasure.
It was very moving. It is also very tragic that there is war also in Lviv now, right? We are supposed to remember, and we said never again. I also wanted to add that you told me 2 weeks ago that there was actually an attack of drones in Lviv. So
over a week ago.
Yes, week ago. So where the citadel was damaged, and yeah, it's even more important for us to keep remembering about the history, because we want that soon the peace comes also to Lviv and the whole Ukraine and the victory.
Actually, these drones flew a few meters over my head and blew approximately 300 meters away from me. This was terrifying. But it's war, and we do not know what to do. One evil came instead of another evil, and however the roots and the essence of this evil is authoritarian, totalitarian regime, and unfortunately, the history repeats itself. Well, in somewhat different manner, with a different rhetoric, with different persons in it, but really it's the repeating of what had happened here 82 years ago. So anyway, that's what the situation here is like.
Thank you, Alex.
We must, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and now it's Nurit who will tell us shortly from the historian perspective about what happened in Lviv.
Okay. You know that this pogrom, it's a prison pogrom. The prison pogroms was part of series of pogroms against the Jewish population that took place with the Nazi German invasion of the USSR, known as Barbarossa operation. Operation during the end of June, beginning of July 1941. Ukraine gained its independence for the first time in 1991, but throughout the periods in the history in which it was intermittently controlled by Russia, Poland, and Austria, its population aspired to independence, especially in Western Ukraine. In the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact of August 23, 1939, between the Nazi Germany and the USSR, Poland was divided between the two powers, and Eastern Galicia is Western Ukraine, annexed to the USSR. The nationalist Ukrainian movement in Western Ukraine, which aspired to independence, opposed the rule of the USSR and made an alliance with Nazi Germany in the expectation that it would give them independence. But Germany's goals was another, different. And the Germany expected the nationalist Ukrainians to do the work of exterminating the Jews for her, because the Ukrainian accused the Jews of collaborating with the USSR and handing over Ukrainian nationalist leaders and fighters opposed to the communist regime to the USSR. This was the reason for the pogroms against the Jews. The organization of Ukrainian nationalists, its name shortly OUN, was founded in Western Ukraine under Polish rule between the two World Wars, striving for establishment of an independent Ukrainian state and not resorting to political terrorism. In June 1941, the nationalist Ukrainian declared independence under the leadership of Yaroslav Stachko as a follow-up to the declaration of the party at the Congress in Krakow in April 1941, which states, the Jews in the USSR are the backbone of the ruling Bolshevik regime and are an avant-garde of Moscow imperialism in Ukraine. The Bolshevik government in Moscow exploit anti-Jewish attitude of the Ukrainian masses to divert their minds from the real cause of their troubles and to direct them during against the pogroms. OUN sees the Jews as the backbone of the regime in Moscow, but explain to the masses that the main enemy is Moscow. Upon declaring independence, the Ukrainians formed a national militia, and together with the Ukrainian police, wore a yellow-blue ribbon on the arm, wearing a muffler bonnet named after the Cossack leader, Ivan Mazepa. Within the period, there was a rift between OUN members, between Stefan Bandera, the leader of the extremists, and Melnik, the leader of the volunteers. The Germans set up two battalions. The Nachtingale battalion, where Bandera men served, and the Roland battalion, where others served. The 300 battalion soldiers were Ukrainian, and the commander were German. Among the Ukrainian were intellectual, freelancer, and former officers in the Polish army. The two battalions annexed to the Einsatzgruppen C, led by Dr. Roche, enter Lvov on June 30, 1941. They entered to the Reinik, the old town square, and hung German and Ukrainian flags on the town hall. They joined the Ukrainian who broke into the municipal prisons, where the Ukrainian political prisons include Jews were imprisoned, who were imprisoned by the Soviet government and began massacring them, Jews. The Russian government eliminated the political prisoners in the prisons before its withdrawal, a total of about 4,000 prisoners. The Ukrainian accused the Jews of aiding the Russian in killing the prisoners. They called them Jews in the street, beat them, brought them to prisons to clean them, evacuate the bodies and bury them, and murder many of them, of the Jews. These are the pogroms now as the prisons pogroms. The prison pogroms took place in all the prisons in town and city in Western Ukraine. An Ukrainian railway worker in the town of Stryk, south of Lviv, explained the reason for the pogroms. For 200 years, the Jews were the Lord Jews, and we were the water suckers and the shoemakers of your shoes. When you ate meat, we ate a slice of subtle bread. When you wore good clothes, we wore rags. Now it was our turn. Blessed the memory of those who perished. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
And now I ask to Mr. The main rabbi of Lviv, Mr. Mordechai Shlomo Bolt, to tell his things. To what Rabbi Bolt, are you with us?
Yes, yes.
Yes, you are welcome to tell what do you want to tell, to talk
Great.
about.
Yeah. Thank you, Aga, David, and Nurit, and Alexander,
Israel.
Israel, and Melech. And thank you all. It's you are the safekeepers. It's amazing. It amazes me that you take the problem of Lvov, Ukraine, and you spread it all out internationally as safekeepers.
Thank you.
So it should never happen again. Like Alex said so eloquently. The issue today, the reason why we went to Egypt, the Bible says it numerous times. So you should understand how a proselyte, how a foreigner, how a lonely person feels. You should understand, you should feel what a downtrodden person goes through, what a less fortunate person goes through. And that's exactly what we're experiencing now in Ukraine. And we sang this song, Never Again, for decades and decades. And we thought, yeah, never again. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. People don't really speak, but how many thousands of houses received a body bag, the only child, not to have any children ever again? The tragic eyes, if you go on the street and look at the eyes of these mothers, it's exactly like 80 years ago. They lost hope. They don't know what tomorrow brings. And if there is people, distinguished people like you, intelligent, cultured people like you, as the safekeepers and caring about the people here, that it should never happen again, by remembering the tragedies of the Holocaust. It always starts with the Jew, but it goes on to all the other nations. So that's going to keep it from happening again. You're meeting today, you're remembering hundreds of names. That means we don't forget about forgiving. We're not here to forgive. We're not here not to forgive. We don't have the power. It's those perished that have the power. But forget, that's our job. The least we can do for these people that perished is never to forget. And as long as we remember the message. So let me just, I want to say this in one, maybe even 2 lines. King David says in Psalms 30, Leman yizmercha chavod v'lo yidom. Never keep silence. He says it about singing praise to God, but it's the same exact message. The ones who keep silence, today you didn't keep silence. Today you remembered all the people that were oppressed, downtrodden, and suffered and were murdered. As long as we don't keep silence, then we're going to be the safekeepers that it shouldn't happen again. The second line I would like to say is when we sat here in Lvov for the whole winter, almost the whole winter, we sat in the cold, and I didn't have heating at home because the electric wasn't working, and you need a pump to pump the radiators, the water into the radiators. So it was freezing and dark, just like whoever was in Lvov last Friday night for a few hours, we didn't have any electric, and I was eating in the dark, only the 2 candles of Shabbat. And I remembered the winter when it was freezing, -10, -15, -20, and freezing cold and in the dark for months. Why? Because some political head, some oppressor, somebody wanted to stuff a favor down our throats, our Ukrainian throats. He said, I know what's good for you. Please don't push your favors down. And we sat here in the dark, and the feeling of, we might live another day and we might not. And life became precious, but it was happening again. And I have to say that if it's dark at home and we lost our keys to the car, so we go outside to look for the keys because the street lights are working. So there's a power out at home, but we go to the streets and look for the keys in the streets. And the wife says, hey, Sam, what are you going outside for? What are you looking for the keys? He says, there's light outside. There's no light in the house. But the problem is at home. Don't look for outside solutions when the problem is at home. And I feel that your meeting today, and I'm very privileged they invited me on. I feel the meeting today is speaking immensely to that the problem is first, we have to speak up. It's in our hands. We have to speak up. And I'm going to finish this with one little anecdote from Jerusalem. I heard this anecdote about an old rabbi. He's like 90 years old, and he comes back from the synagogue late at night, and he hears crying from the bushes. So he goes towards the sound, and he sees a little kid tied to a tree. He says, what happened? Who tied you? He says, I was playing sus varechev. I was playing horse and buggy. And my friend was the rider, and I was the horse, and I was at all 4, and he was sitting on me, and we played. And then what happened? Well, what happened was, he was playing, then he got tired and hungry, went home. He said he's coming right back, and he didn't come back for a few hours. So the rabbi says, Oy, that's horrible. So the old rabbi went around the tree to untie the rope, and he sees it's just hanging on a nail. It's not even tied. He tells the kid, the rope is not even tied. The kid says, I know. So the rabbi says, so why didn't you go home a few hours ago? Why are you sitting in the dark crying? He said, because I'm a horse. We're playing horse. A horse doesn't know how to untie himself. As long as we play horse, as long as we don't get it, that it's in our hands to untie ourselves, it's in our hands to speak up. And that's exactly what you people amaze me. Such a distinguished panel over here today. And you can go live on your lives and just, I remember, but you sit here and you care from internationally, care about the unfortunate people here in Lviv, and you come to speak out at a Zoom in Lviv with Alex and Alexander representing the ghetto and the Judenrat and all that stuff, and you're sitting here and saying, no, I'm not going to go my way. I'm not going to be silent. I'll speak up by remembering the old. That's absolutely the guarantee that it won't happen never again. Thank you so much for the privilege.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we can close the official part. Thank you very much. Now we are staying online. If obviously you want to stay with us, and this is a room to speak up if you want to share something about your family from Lviv and the vicinity, about the pre-war or about the war experiences from Lviv, or whatever you'd like to share today. If you want, you can also share in a chat, or you can write in a chat if you want to say something. So the floor is yours. Is anyone willing to speak up?
I have tell you that we are talking about a lot of names of the victims, people were perishing, but the big part of Jewish community, it was very the people of culture. We are talking about Bora Fogel. We are talking about the painter Erno Erb, and we are talking about the all kinds of musicians like Jakub Mund and other people. I have tell you, and it's not only my opinion, that the big part of the Jewish culture was perished, was totally deleted from the story, and of course don't forget that the Jewish population before World War II, we are talking about 130,000 people. It was all kinds of. It was like merchants, it was composers, it was, oh, sorry, my English is too much bad to talk about that. So, sorry, but that's what I feel. I have thank you a lot, all of people, all of participants, all of staff for this ceremony, and I promise you, till I leave, this ceremony will be annual. I promise you, everyone. Thank you. Toda raba. Hello.
Thank you, Alexander. So the floor is open. Yes, please.
Hello, Aga. Finally to see you. Nice to see you. Not in these circumstances. I have been doing my family tree since 2000. And after getting dates and everything, I decided to find out what happened, where it happened. I spoke to everybody. In 2017, I came with my sister and 4 Israeli cousins to Lviv. Sasha was our guide, and very knowledgeable. And I am so happy that I did, even though it was the saddest trip I've ever taken. It was sad because I had one address of my grandparents that was in the ghetto, and found out what happened in the ghetto. Unfortunately, I broke down, but my cousin said to me, let us walk down the street and we will walk where our ancestors walked. And that left a wonderful impression. I went to where my father was born in Moschis, where my mother was born in Rudki, and where my grandparents lived in Horodek. It was a very sad trip, but I'm very happy I did it so I could see where my ancestors were. So I could not just say, we remember them. I really remember them. That was it for my trip. And I will always remember everybody. Thank you very much for having this Shoah Remembrance Day.
Thank you, Rahel. Please speak up, others, if you'd like, obviously.
If I may,
Yes,
I want
please.
to say a few words. Maila Sheikhet. It's very important to these days that we would establish a proper understanding of what happened, that the Holocaust will be shared with other people like we would like to.
Бачив, що у нас пов'язкою на вухах.
And unfortunately, the historians don't bring up that the Holocaust didn't happen by a switch on electric like we do every time when we need. It happened, it was well prepared by the German Nazi with their agents a long time before the World War started. And when we say that what happened, we always should remember that Jewish people used to live in these areas for 1,000 years and more and created fantastic Jewish heritage, which was spiritual and cultural. And that was possible because of certain level of positive relations with local population. But it happened anyway. And that shows that toxic ideology, which was brought by German Nazi, was orchestrated, recruited some of the local marginals. And if not for the German Nazi, the Holocaust here would never happen. Answer to this is a fantastic Jewish spiritual and cultural heritage. So when we say the truth, we have to divide the reason why it happened and talk about how it was provided. Without this, we would never get to our side, the local population, which then will be able to share that when we share the pain of what generally happened here, then we get the local Gentiles to understand the Holocaust better. But when we talk only about the Jewish tragedy, and we don't talk about the Nazi ideology, which brought everything to happen, with Wannsee Conference, with everything was put together to orchestrate this terrible tragedy of the global community, not only the Jewish. Holocaust became a tragedy to the whole world. And because of Holocaust, when the human life became priceless, was nullified, now we have the situation in the world. We have terrible wars around the globe. We have martyrs even today. So the conscience and the demoralization, which started by German Nazi, continues till today. And that what brought to recruit the local population. Again, we have to remember, and Jews is the people to remember. The Jewish people in Galicia was able to create fantastic Jewish spiritual and cultural heritage. As that shows that the relations with local populations would last it positive till today. It would be a garden blossoming here if not for the German Nazi ideology, which was later on was added by the terrible communist dictatorship. But that was all happened because we kept silence. We don't have to keep silence. We have to be, Jewish people has a special destiny to be a center of all good to all. And as soon as we will remember about this, everyone, then we will reach the goal created by Almighty.
Thank you. Thank you, Mela.
Melach, I met you a long time ago, and you were not quite so articulate back then, but your English is very, very excellent now. And I think we all benefited from listening to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
Thank you all. Thank you for being you.
thank you as well for being here. Is anyone else wishing to take?
Yes,
Hey.
this is Henry
Henry.
Kurian. Hi, Agnieszka. I just wanted to express my thanks directly to Agnieszka because she is my mother's sister's granddaughter. And I met her about 10, 15 years ago because my mother's sister stayed in Poland and my parents moved to the States. But she has been instrumental in me finding out so much about both our mutual families and my father's family, because both my parents were from Lvov. They both survived. My father survived by being a soldier in the Russian army. My mother survived by, ironically, escaping to Krakow and then going to Plaszow and then going to Auschwitz and then actually going to Lichtenwerden, which was a sub-camp of Auschwitz. But Agnieszka her energy is unlimited. She helps so many people with her research. She's multilingual, so she can help me translate because I'm single lingual. But I just want to express my thanks to her and also to everyone else who's participating in this. It's such a valuable thing for all of us to remember our families because we all lost so many people. My father was the youngest of 6. All his siblings were married. Many of them had children. The only person that survived besides my father was one of his nieces. And once again, I just want to thank everyone for this. It's so valuable.
Thank you, Henry. You didn't have to thank me because I think everyone is doing here their best, but thank you very much. And I am also looking forward to your work because you are also going to, in future, publish something about our family and your family, right?
I hope to. It's a long process and I don't think I'm very good at it, but I'm trying.
Thank
Well,
you, Henry.
I will agree with what Henry said. I think I met you, Aga, last year before the ceremony, and I am very impressed with your dedication to this project. And I think all of us on the call today will try to make an effort to keep this going annually now that you have started this beautiful and I think profound way of remembering the individuals. We hear statistics all the time, but here is an opportunity that we have using modern technology to remember individuals and to remember them in a dignified way. And so kol hakavod, as they say. My hat's off to you, Aga, for making this possible. And I was very privileged. I felt privileged to participate.
Thank you, David, for your kind words and your contribution. But I wanted to clarify that the ceremony itself was initiated by Alexander, and I think by Andre and Yoika. So I don't want to take credit for starting this ceremony. I am happy to do as much as I can and help, but this honor of creating the event itself belongs, I'm sure, to Alexander. But I think that even more people were involved. But yeah, I think we have a great community, because we
Pouring
are
in Lvov.
actually very few. So very few survived the Holocaust in Lviv. And that's why we keep together, as we are not too many people, but we still share similar stories. We also, our the lives of our families actually often pass by each other in different places. And we have a group on Facebook. I know that there's also a group in Israel dedicated to Jewish Lvov. I have met online Mrs. Janina Altman, born Hescheles, and I have, after my grandmother passed away, I have discovered that actually Janina, with her mother, was in the same Jewish hospital in the ghetto as my and Henry's family. And I discovered the passages exactly describing our family, and I talk, and this is actually, I think, the most powerful, that everybody from us has some memories and traces, and that we can connect it together. And yeah, I thank everyone for supporting it and helping. And I'm sorry that we had some technical problems. We are all volunteers, and we don't do it professionally. And I hope that there are more people that want to speak today. Thank
Well,
you.
we had 30 participants today. I want to repeat the gratitude that we all feel to Alexander and to Alex. Both of you contributed some very important aspects to put this in perspective. And also thanks to Nuri.
And thank you to Yoika, that is not with us, that sings for us each year beautiful Yiddish songs.
That's right. Sorry, I just want to add, for those of you who don't know me, I am a retired journalist in Philadelphia. I have a website connected to my parents, and I recently added some more materials to the website regarding what happened 82 years ago in Lviv. If you're interested, I have a monthly newsletter at my website. It's free, and I invite anyone who's interested to check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone?
Yes, this is Carol. Thank you very much. I'm one of the probably many people from, I'm a Weisberg from Lviv. It's lost to us. It's completely lost. We've tried researching, and everyone just comes up murdered, which, like so many people there. So this is just a wonderful way for me, and for, I'm going to tell my siblings and cousins. It also, I learned a lot from the history today, because as I think I had told you, my father probably did know more, but he's since passed away. He joined through the American Field Service, the British fighting before the US was in the war because of this. And we didn't know, we didn't know exactly what it was, but he said because of what happened there in what was Lemberg when my grandfather left, we had to do something. So he joined. And, like I say, we've tried to find out exactly who the people were, and we don't know. But it seems like there's a big Weisberg group that was remembered, as well as Wisberg, which could be as well. So I feel collectively I'm acknowledging, even though I don't know the specific individuals. So thank you so much for doing this.
Carol, I can connect you with the Weisberg family that I know of offline,
Okay.
and give you
Great.
contacts. And there was the Weisberg family that I know of. So this was the, I think, Professor Weisberg that came from Klinger and Weisberg family. And he was a child survivor. He was hiding in Warsaw, and he wrote a book, but I can share with you.
That would be great. We also have family that we know of that we're all connected in Mexico. That was my grandfather's family had 9 children. So we have a Mexican branch. They got out as well before the war, and that's it, as far as we know. So.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else willing to speak?
Well, I want to add, for those of you who have seen the movie In Darkness, the great film by Agnieszka Holland. This is a dramatization of the episode in the sewers of Lviv that my mother survived. My newsletter and my website are in the chat, and that's enough self-promotion for one person. But thanks again, everybody.
I would like.
Yes, please go.
Sorry.
Hi, Eitan, please.
Yeah, I would like to add my voice to the thanks to Agnieszka for organizing again in a very beautiful way to commemorate our collective pain. Now, I would like also to thank the new generation of the Lvov Jewish community who also do a lot and helped us in organizing commemoration. And so they also try to revive the Jewish culture. They have a theater company, and they have a klezmer group that appears almost every year in a festival that they organize. And they helped us with publishing the memories of my mother in Russian and in Ukrainian.
Mention the Amsterdam press.
Since then, the book that they helped us that they translated was also translated to other languages, and we got a lot of help from the what's it called?
Agnieszka, if there's anybody on here who's trying to connect with their stories, there's a European publisher specialized in Holocaust stories, and that is how Janina got published her English version of her diaries, and they are the Amsterdam Press. And anybody who wants the contact, who wants to see if one of their ancestors has been published by the Amsterdam Press, they can contact you. We can send you their contact, or Eitan can give you their contact.
Yes, thank you. That's great. Yeah, if anyone is interested in publishing the story in English or in also other European languages, or how is it?
they took care of publishing it
In
in
Italian
Italian and in an audio
version.
in an audiobook version.
Mhm. Yes.
And I think that it is very good that we have this site. The problem with books in general is that we don't know how long they will live, because today books are people move to electronic versions of books.
Mhm.
So it's important to have, if we want to commemorate to a long to the next generation, then we have to. It is not sufficient only to commemorate while people are still here, but to find ways to remember for other people in the future.
Thank you, Eitan. I also would like to say that if anyone would like to read your mother's diary, it is available in English, originally in Polish, in Ukrainian, right? In I don't know, other languages.
In Hebrew, in Russian, in French, in Spanish, in Catalan, and it was all volunteer work. We didn't do anything in terms of pushing things or requesting to publish versions, and it might disappear that way because, for example, the Russian and the Ukrainian versions don't have an official editor behind it, so it was published by Chesed Aryeh in Lviv.
You can share with me the details, Eitan, and if anyone would like to learn about how to do it, I will connect them with you.
Good idea.
Thank you, Eitan. It is, I mean,
Thank you.
The diary of your mother is really peculiar because she was so young and she was able to write it. I recommend to anyone interested to read the diary. Before next person speaks up, I also have a message from one of the other co-organizers that was not able to join today, Cheryl. Cheryl is also the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors of Lvov, or Lviv, and she wrote, "Many families hid in the sewers in Lvov. My mother, Irena Shtir Shapira, hid her 2 brothers, Gienek Edek, sister Stefania, and Enis Roma in the sewers in Lvov for nearly a year. Their survival was a miracle. Besides the determination to live and the pain they endured, my mother wanted to preserve the memory of her family that was murdered in Bełżec. Some of the family valuables and photographs were buried in the ground near their home. The names on the back of the photos were redacted to hide their identities. The little valuables they had were used to buy false papers. During one attempt to retrieve the valuables, my mother was shot in the back and hid in the woods in freezing temperatures. When she felt it was safe, she went to a friend's home and who was a midwife to treat her wound." And this is about the mother of Cheryl, about Irena Shtir Shapira, and her father, escaping Janowska camp. My father, Ignacy Itzhak Shapira, and his 2 brothers, Adolf and Chaim, and his brother-in-law Isaac, were told by the Nazis that they had jobs for them. They said that their wives and children would be safe. Enduring cruelty at Janowska camp, they orchestrated an escape. His brother Chaim was shot in the back by the SS man Rokita, and the others escaped into the woods and joined up with the partisans. After the liberation, they found that their wives and children were murdered in Bełżec. My father did not speak much, but he had photos of his son and daughter and my grandfather. The photos are very haunting as they resemble my brother and myself. This is by Cheryl Shapira. Thank you. And now other person can also speak up.
I'm from Toronto in Canada. I wanted to tell Mila that we just got a few weeks ago our Toronto Holocaust Museum opened. It has been the Holocaust survivors who are in Toronto have been going. What they want to do is teach children, bring classes into the museum to show them and show them around the museum. It's supposed to be, I haven't gone yet, but that is one way of getting it out. It's by teaching the children, not just Jewish children, but children of all schools that come to, we have a lot of anti-Semitism here, a lot of anti-Semitism. And the only way to get to these children is by teaching them, by showing them what really happened. I'm in contact now with them to talk about Lvov. I still call it Lvov, I'm sorry. I'm used to that. And I would like to get more information to them about not just people who went to concentration camps, but to people who had to hide, had to run, had to take trains everywhere, who jumped off of trains, who lived under, in Lakawala, my parents were in the farmer had dug out a place for people to go underneath in the barn, underneath the hay. So when the Nazis came, they would jab the hay, but they wouldn't know about underneath the barn. And that's where they hid for a while. But they were runners. My grandparents who stayed behind ended up being shot, or my grandfather, who was a butcher in Lvov, was told by the Nazis to come and cut the meat for them. And he thought he would, everybody was hungry, so he thought he could take a couple of slices home for his wife, my grandmother, and he was shot in the street on the way back. I don't know what happened to my grandmother because there's nobody to tell what happened to her. And it scares me to find out what really happened to her. My mother was taking my sister, my baby sister, to meet her grandmother and aunt and uncle. And on the way to the house, she saw her mother and sister and brother shot in front of their house. I have started to write all of this down. I want to get it out as a book, but I am not very good at this. So I'm going to speak to you, Aga, and find out what do I do next. But again, it is, there are at least 700 women alone whose parents were Holocaust survivors who have gotten together here in Toronto and had different presenters come and speak to us. And it's amazing just to get together and speak about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rahel. Anyone else? We have 11 minutes left, right?
Yes, Freddie, just start talking.
I don't hear.
Freddie, can you speak up?
Can you hear me now? No.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, the stage is yours.
I can't hear you, but obviously you can hear me. Is it okay?
Yes.
Well, I will be brief. First of all, I want to thank you for the ceremony. You know, my grandfather, a Jewish grandfather, Simon Gruber, was murdered by Ukrainians during the so-called Petlura Days pogrom. This is my mother, my Jewish mother. Her name is Antonia Gruber. He studied at the Faculty of German Philology at Lvov University. And when the Germans started to liquidate the Jews in the ghetto in August of 1942, this gentleman, whose name was Nestor Zenon Sniadanko, he was a Ukrainian, helped her to smuggle her out of the ghetto and brought her to his apartment and gave her shelter for 2 years. He is my father. And then they moved to Poland and to Rosenheim in a camp for displaced persons where I was born. And then in 1948, in November, we moved to Israel. And 27 years after my father's death, he received the Medal of Righteous Among the Nations by Yad Vashem. And you're Eitan, you're Yanida's son, I understand. I have met your mother and your father twice in Israel because I wanted to understand what happened to my mother. She worked in the Yanovska camp in a textile factory. I met her and I met some friends of her. She prepared borscht for me, and she was such a wonderful woman and so active on behalf of the Palestinians, a woman of great conscience. My mother, by the way, who was a piano teacher, spent 15 years teaching piano in Shfar'am, an Arab town not far from Haifa, because she felt that she has to. She told me when I was down, there was someone to help me, and now it is my duty to help others who feel down. She was a very strong woman. My parents were very were humanists, and I hope that I resemble them. I try to resemble them in my own life. And David Lee Preston, I understood that your family were hiding in the sewers of Lviv.
Yes, my mother was. Now, you mentioned that your mother was working. You
I
mentioned
can't hear you right now, but I will in a moment. So you must be the son of Krisha. Is Krisha your mother? No. Because we had friends of the family who, in Israel, in Kiryat Chaim, who were hiding in the
I'm not
sewers
sure.
of-
Aga, do you know why Freddie can't hear me?
I think it's the technical issue on Freddie's end, but your mom was Christina Higer, right?
My mother was Halina.
Halina. Okay.
Halina Wind. She was in the same group as Christina. Freddie's mother worked in the textile factory in Yanovska. I suspect he's speaking about the Schwarz factory that employed my mother and other women who were charged with repairing the clothing of the murdered Jews and sending it to the front or back to Germany to be worn by German women.
What my mother told me. that they had were working on clothes. Some of it was sent to orphans in Germany. Some of it was sent to soldiers in the front, and what was impossible to repair was sent to clean the tanks in the front. And but she told me a very censored version of what happened. So my father never spoke about the war with me, never, not even once. And my mother, who died 11 years ago, only occasionally. Again, I got only nothing that could hurt my feelings was ever shared with me. And after the death of my mother, I went to Ukraine to search for my father's family, with whom there was no contact. And I found the apartment where my mother was hidden. I found a big family, Ukrainian family. I have family in Lviv right now. My cousin is a doctor of psychology, head of the psychology department at the Polytechnic of Lviv. My heart goes to all of those people who suffer. But as I told you, I represent both sides of what happened between Jews and Ukrainians, because my grandfather was murdered by Ukrainians. My mother was saved by Ukrainians. And my father came from Sokol. It is a town 80 kilometers north of Lviv. And I visited the graves of my Ukrainian grandparents. And each year I give 4 scholarships to students at the high school where he was, from which he graduated, in memory of my parents, because I think we have to go forward, and this is kind of reconciliation, not that I forget what happened, the sad history of Jews and Ukrainians. But I believe that through education, you become a better person. You understand the world better, the complexity of life. And this is not the first time I joined this ceremony. And when I heard it for the first time, I was so moved. Just the thought that the names of my grandfather, Shimon, and my grandmother, Bluma, and my 2 uncles, Marcel and Joseph, are mentioned on the air. It's not going to bring them back, but it makes their parting a bit more dignified. This event is making them more dignified in their death, because someone remembers and pays homage and mentions their names, who until a few years ago were, I don't know where, just up there somewhere, and now they're here, and we are all sharing. What connects us is this sad history, but also the stories that we share, and the fact that we came together is such this is such a wonderful, totally unexpected thing in a world which is getting worse by the day. So Agnieszka, I speak a bit of Polish too. Jak mówić trochę po polsku? Mówiłem po polsku w domu. Thank you again for doing this, and to all these wonderful people who come from so many different worlds, places. I wish you all the best, good health, and let this terrible war come to an end and people can live in peace everywhere.
Thank you. Freddie, would you be kind enough to, can you hear me, Freddie? Can you hear me? Please reach out to me on my website. I would like to be in touch with you, okay?
I can
Definitely
connect you.
will, I will.
I can connect you, David, with Freddie, if this is okay.
I will be in Israel in August, and I would be glad to meet Freddie.
You want to write down my phone number right now?
Yeah.
Can do.
You can write in the chat, for example, or no, in the private chat, or you can
or email.
or I have an email. I have an email of Aidan, and I have the email of Freddie, so I can connect you. Is it okay? So
Okay, sure.
I would like, in maybe 20 seconds that are left, just to join the thanks. I'm Eitan's brother and Yanina's son. So thanks a lot for this important event and ceremony. That was very moving.
thank you very much. Anyone else willing to share? We are, yeah, I mean, if there is anyone wanting to say last words, it's also okay.
May I say something?
Yes, please say.
I feel that again the clouds of war are in Europe, and it's the same, and it's not only very dangerous. It could go to a world war, and we should absolutely try to find ways to stop it as soon as possible before there are a lot more dead. And I think it's in general it's not only a matter of we should speak up, because it doesn't only concern us, but there is a silence on many other genocides that occurred, like the ones in Africa or in Turkey with the Armenians, and sometimes it has not even been recognized officially that it occurred. So there is still a work to do on the memory that we pass on to the next generations. Thanks.
Thank you, Aidan. I think it's a beautiful ending. Unless anyone would like to add, but I think that this sums up our mission or our intention here. I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank co-organizers for working with me on preparing the ceremony. I'd like to thank everyone for sharing the stories, sharing the names, and we will repeat it year after year. And if anyone wishes to connect, please reach out. I think we are all connected somehow now via emails or via messages, and we can talk or discuss different topics. Thank you very much. I don't know, anyone else would like to say goodbye? Or so thank you very much from my side. I'm very moved.
And whoever is on Facebook, both Aga and I are on Facebook, and that's I find that to be a very easy way to stay in contact.
Okay. Anyone wanting to say goodbye? So goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Let's discuss in future if we find a place for the online memorial, if you wish to have that, because I have collected the names. I have been doing it for 3 last years, and now I have 64, I think, slides for the families commemorating their relatives. And I already suggested it last year, but it didn't work out from my side. But if there are people willing to work on such a project, that we have a space somewhere, maybe in internet or some exhibition that is dedicated to the memorial, we can also discuss this in future. Thank you very much, and stay safe and healthy. And I hope that next year there is no war in Lviv when we talk again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom.
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 Shalom.